He knows the way.
We've seen a lot of Goblins on camera in the Open Series the last month or so, actually putting up pretty reasonable results, but whenever it's run into Blue White Red Delver, I felt that they've been significantly disadvantaged. The combination of True Name Nemesis and Umezawa's Jitte through Stoneforge Mystic, just a brutal combination for 1 and 2 toughness, non-flying creatures.
Yeah, real tough guy. As we take a look at Shahar's board here, he's Lightning Bolting a Goblin King, so that's unnecessary. Now Sword Splasher and Goblin Pile Driver. So we're walking into a bloodbath, potentially. Shenhar on your right has 2 copies of Volcanic Island Tundra that just went to the graveyard, but a True Name Nemesis and a Insect Operation that were turned sideways, but I guess he doesn't need those anymore, as Dempsey is going to pick up his cards and concede the game. Well, moving on to a third game between these 2 players, but, you know, obviously a lot of what Blue White Red Delver does is difficult for Goblins. You mentioned the spot removal, Bolt and Swords, and I don't even want to get started with True Name Nemesis.
Yeah, True Name Nemesis is a card that a lot of decks, you know, of course, in Legacy, have had to adapt their builds to try to beat. Goblins, one of the few decks that the plan seems to be shrug my shoulders and hope to overpower it or hope that it's not drawn. Very few Goblin decks even have something like Pyroblast on the sideboard because the opportunity cost of putting in non-Goblin cards into a deck with a bunch of Tribal Lords and Goblin Ringleaders and such is very high. So the recipe appears to be overwhelm it, hopefully with something like Goblin Pile Driver, which is very good against it, but not actually kill it or fly over it, just try to beat it on the ground.
Yeah, I think there's a really good chance that the Brainstorm Ponder Gataxian Probe deck won't find True Name Nemesis, so that's a good that's a good plan that the Goblins deck is employing. Just hope they don't draw it.
Oh, another plan that Goblins has in the matchup, of course, is that they have access to both Wasteland and Rishadan Port.
Sure.
A lot of these blue-white-red decks are, you know, they're pretty mana-light because they're playing with a lot of cantrips to put it together. They have no basic lands because the deck can't really afford to play basic lands, and so you can get off to a good start and then use Wastelands and Ports to keep them off 3 mana, which is not an unreasonable game plan.
Yeah, in combination with Aether Vial, that plan's actually going to work pretty well, but that's kind of all things kind of going right. There are answers, of course, to True Name Nemesis in Goblins' colors. They can, you know, play a card like Warren Weirding if they'd like, but it doesn't always work the way that you want it to, so it's a little bit difficult. Quick update for you guys as well. We'll be updating for you guys most of the weekend as best we can about what's happening in the other feature matches that we don't have on camera. If you're an AJ Soccer fan, and Lord knows I am, he has won round number 1, as well as Kent Ketter, who, again, has really been making a name for himself over Season 1 here and is going to be traveling to a lot of events. He told me on the old Twitter sphere over this week that he decided to go into the brew tank this weekend instead of playing monsters of some version. So we'll see how that works out for him. Obviously off to a really nice start.
It's surprising because Kent's had so much success over the last couple months playing monster strategies in Standard.
Yeah, I mean, the issue here is it seems like Monsters is really trending down. It feels like, you know, I remember St. Louis quite well. Obviously, you and I there. Chris Van Meter with the great run to get back into the top 8, ends up losing in the top 4. Ketter making the top 8, and then eventually Monsters winning the tournament with Boone Sater and really no new cards. But that's when Monsters really peaked. And I think it was after that week that people just decided, all right, enough is enough. This deck is real, and it's time to beat it. And it seems like it's been trending downward ever since.
Yeah, I think the big change to the metagame has been a lot more Esper in the place of blue-white, usually with some sort of main deck Doomblade or Ultimate Price, just additional cheap spot removal to keep the monsters off of its large creatures, particularly Stormbreath Dragon and Mistcutter Hydra in post-board games that cause all sorts of fits for straight blue-white builds.
Now, to be fair, I'm not exactly sure what Kent is playing the Legacy portion. That's the portion that we're obviously in right now. You know, a lot of the times when we're at the Open Series, things of that nature, Kent always plays on day 1 but doesn't play on day 2. I suppose he's playing on day 2 at the beginning in the elimination rounds of the Standard Open, but he's never actually sleeving up a Legacy deck, and he admits that my Legacy game is pretty weak. I'm very happy with where I'm at in Standard. He's made a couple PTU top 8s, as lost in the finals, 3 Open Series top 8s to here during Season 1. His Legacy game is a little bit softer, but obviously he's off to a nice start with a win, as Dempsey is going to keep his opening hand. You see Sam Black in Dempsey's screen on the right. He has slid over to our backup feature match area, so with any luck, we'll be able to watch Sam play a little bit of Magic as well. Shenhar going to take a mulligan in Game 3.
I really love covering the Invitationals because the talent level is just so high.
Boy.
It's a mixture of all of our top open grinders combined with a lot of professional players who may not travel for the Open Series very much but are very successful in the events they do get to attend, therefore end up qualifying for Invitationals and such. You see Shahar and Sam Black in our round 1 feature matches.
You got Jeff Hoogland behind Shahar there. He's walking by, maybe coming out. He has a bye, at least one potential. I think he has 2 buys this particular tournament, but It's always nice to see it when Shahar comes out and Sam and some other guys. I know Brian Kipler tries to make it out to these. Wasn't able to make it out this weekend, but I'm sure when we're on the West Coast for one of these, he'll certainly come out, sleeve up some sort of green deck.
Yeah, I work with Brian over at Stoneblade Entertainment, and his travel schedule has been very hectic lately, so I think he just wanted to shut it down for a weekend.
A weekend off isn't the worst thing in the world. Here's a Cavern of Souls, presumably naming Goblin, but we'll get confirmation into an Aether Vial. So a very nice start here for Dempsey, the Goblin player. I swear, Patrick, this will be unbiased reporting.
Another powerful Aether Vial-oriented deck here. We had Merfolk on the first time, and now Goblins here.
Rashad Port, the best land in history, comes down on turn number 2.
I suspect that Rashad Port is behind Basic Island.
Tough to say.
Rashad Port's very high on the list, certainly.
Was Basic Island ever banned? Because Rashad Port was.
No, but arguably it should have been banned at one point.
That'll tap the Volcanic Island. Shahar will just play another copy of Volcanic Island. Vial going to active. Lackey's going to come in. Shahar's going to need a bolt. Pretty badly here.
Yeah. Aether Vial is just so powerful in this deck.
One could argue it's the best card in the deck, as now the Lackey is going to hit. This is something that doesn't happen a ton, given all the spot removal in the format. The trigger, what's it going to put into play is the big question.
Even Deathrite Shaman has caused a lot of issues with Goblin Lackey here.
Here's a Thalia. Now the trigger. This is interesting stacking. So with the trigger in the stack, he vials in Thalia. Now he's going to put in a Goblin War Chief off of the trigger.
And you can see Shahar just really struggling with a lot of dazes in his hand that are just not really well equipped to fight this Aether Vial or this Cavern of Souls.
A port activation is going to tap Volcanic Island. You see Shenhar is going to take a look at Goblin War Chief. Will do the same. The cost reduction Goblin from Scourge, is it?
Yes.
I believe it is Scourge. Here's a Stoneforge Mystic. But 2/2 haste for 3. Goblins are a little bit cheaper, and they all have haste. We'll see what Stoneforge Mystic is going to search up.
But Shahar getting pinned on a lot of different levels here. Stoneforge Mystic, one of the most powerful tools you can have against a deck like Goblins. But the mixer of Rashad Port and Thalia is going to make it very challenging for Shahar to play anything resembling an efficient game.
Yeah, that's kind of the plan with the Goblin deck now. It has really worked its way towards playing Thalia. Dempsey has some in his main deck this week, and his list is a little bit unconventional, but it's been working out so far in this particular match as we're in a 3rd game here between these players.
And Brandon stealing round 1 against Blue Eye Red Delver would be quite the coup for him, especially against a player of Shahar's quality, as this matchup just feels really tough for the Goblins pilot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is a matchup with, they have 8 spot removal spells on Swords and Plows. They've got Stoneforge Mystic, Swords and Bolts. They've got Stoneforge Mystic, which can obviously search up Battered Skull or Jite, which are both nightmares. Just being clocked by a Delver pretty early if it flips on turn 2 or 3 is a nightmare. And I don't even want to get into True Name Nemesis because we could do that for a long time, but you don't want to play against that one either.
Even Shahar's more innocuous cards can potentially cause problems. He has a main deck copy of Grim Lavamancer, additional copies in the sideboard. That's another card with the right support that can also create a lot of problems for Goblins. So even the bottom half of quality of cards in Shahar's deck for the matchup is still quite significant.
Dempsey with a couple issues here. He's going to have to vial in the Gem Palm Incinerator, which I'm sure not what he wants to do. He'd rather cycle that, but he doesn't have red mana. And this is a little bit of an issue when you're playing this Goblins version. He's red-white, and he's, relying, obviously, on Cavern of Souls for the Uncounterbillion Goblins, naming Human to put Thalia into play when he doesn't have a Vial. So he's got less mountains than normal. He's got 1 Wooded Foothills, 4 Bloodstained Mires, 3 copies of Plateau, and 4 mountains. But this is a red-heavy deck, and these are draws that can actually happen quite a bit here.
Yeah, you are often just missing red mana outright. Aether Vial gives you some way to work around that. Cavern of Souls can do the same thing, but you're seeing it come up here with the Incinerator.
And obviously you can't cycle Incinerator off of Cavern of Souls, because even though it can provide, I put in quotes, red mana for Goblins, it doesn't do it on the cycling of Gem Palm Incinerator. So what this means, unfortunately, for Dempsey, is that Stoneforge Mystic gets to stay in play. He'll be porting something here. I'm going to assume the Tundra to force Shahar's hand with the Stoneforge Mystic, but we'll see.
Yeah, if Shahar wants to go ahead and activate the Stoneforge Mystic to put the Jite into play, then Brandon's probably fine with that being his turn. And if Shahar wants to do something else, he's one turn off of being able to put that Jite in play unless he finds another white source of mana this turn.
Shenhar says, that's fine, you got my Tundra. Doesn't really bother me all that much. So Stoneforge Mystic will be back on defense here, presumably. A little interesting that Shenhar searched up Jite instead of Battered Skull in this situation.
Yeah, he does have True Name Nemesis in his hand, so it's possibly he's trying to get that set up.
It's a pretty good game plan against the old Goblin deck.
Batterskull is a little bit more susceptible to simply getting Tin Street Hooliganed or something that turn, whereas all you need to do is connect once with the True Name Nemesis with a Jite on it to produce tremendous value against goblins.
Vile is ticking up to 4. That's a good flashpoint to be at, and it looks like a Bloodstained Mire for Dempsey off of the top. So he has found a red source to be able to cycle a Gem Home Incinerator if he has another one in his hand, as he'll put the Bloodstained Mire into play. He's going to sacrifice this.
And you can see, it's easy to look at these Thalias in the sideboards of goblins and say, oh, well, that's got to just be for combo decks or what have you. You can see it doing incredible work against Shahar's hand. You know, he has all these Lightning Bolt, Brainstorm, Source of Plowshare type of cards, which are generally very efficient. But when you double their casting costs, it's really hard for him to play an efficient game. And you're seeing him struggle with a lot of cheap spells in his hand right now.
Yeah, imagine if Lightning Bolt was incinerated in this deck. It'd be a much different deck, and that's exactly what it is right now. So here's a Goblin Pile Driver going to be cast off of Cavern of Souls. 4-1, of course, because of that Goblin War Chief. So it looks like it may be red zone time here. Shahar is going to take a look at his hand.
And this is really rough for Shahar. You can look, he has a Lightning Bolt in his hand. I would assume he had some interest in Lightning Bolting Thalia this turn, but that Pile Driver is so dangerous right now that he simply has to kill that instead.
So that does get taken down by the Bolt. Into the red zone we go, much like last turn, with a Thalia, a Goblin War Chief, and a Gem Palm Incinerator. Vile sitting there at 4 at the ready to threaten a Ringleader, a Krenko, a Tuk-Tuk Scrapper, some other things that can occur here from Dempsey's Goblin deck. And to be fair, it doesn't have to be a Goblin. Could get a little spicy.
Yeah, it could be anything.
See if Shenhar has any blocks that he wants to make here. Could trade with the Gem Palm Incinerator if he'd like.
Yeah, it's not clear how many more of these hits that Shahar can take. Of course, he can't block either the War Chief or Thalia profitably. One's a 2-2 and one has first strike. It is really tough to trade your Stoneforge Mystic for a 2-1 blank creature, essentially. But how many more of these hits can Shahar afford to take?
Well, he decides he can take one more because he's going to go down to 7. Tundra will get tapped again via Rashidin Port. Shenhar is going to draw a card. It's another copy of Volcanic Island. But as you mentioned, Thalia doing an incredible job of taxing the mana, as now here is a True Name Nemesis.
So this is an important step for Shahar, but we've talked about what is Goblin's game plan against True Name Nemesis. Some mixture of mana denial and overwhelming it, and Brandon might have enough of both to steal this third game.
Brandon draws a card. I believe it was a Cavern of Souls. The question is, does this Goblin's player have any spells left? Cavern will come into play. We'll get confirmation on what that is naming, if it'll be Goblin or Human. And it will be Goblin yet again.
And this is a really critical turn here, because if Brandon isn't able to force lethal through this turn, he may not get another shot.
And he just has to pass the turn back. Shenhar is going to attempt to draw, but on the upkeep, it's time to tap a little something, something. Probably that Tundra yet again, but again, we know that Shenhar has the Umazawa's Jite in his hand. So with the tapping on the stack, he can activate Stoneforge Mystic, put Jite into play. He's got the other 2 mana equipped with the True Name Nemesis, and then things start to spiral out of control.
Yeah. And you had to believe Shahar senses something is afoot with that Violet 4 here. There's a lot of hesitation on his end right now, putting that Umazawa's Jite into play, even though this seems like a great spot. Maybe he is fearing something like a Tuk-Tuk Scrapper, some other goblin that can break up the Jite.
A Brainstorm is actually what he's going to cast. So, a little bit interesting. Wasn't expecting that. A 2-mana Brainstorm, but hey, a 2-mana Brainstorm is almost as powerful as a 1-mana Brainstorm.
Yeah, I think that Shahar might suspect that his Jite just isn't safe right now. And if he taps his Stoneforge Mystic to put into play, and then taps his True Name Nemesis to attack, and the attack fails because the Jite gets killed, Shahar dies on the way back. So he's playing a little bit more conservatively right now, which he can afford to do with True Name Nemesis in play.
Now you saw Shahar only put 1 card back, shortcutting there, so not cheating, just so for you guys wondering at home, shortcutting there because he's casting a Brainstorm on his upkeep in response to the port. He's going to draw 3 cards, he's going to put 2 back and then draw 1 anyway. So effectively he's only going to put 1 card back, and then the card that he keeps is his draw step. So both players are kosher on that. See that interaction a lot when people are playing Delver decks with Brainstorm. So we're all good to go there. Naya's going to cast a Ponder. He's going to look at 3. Meddling Mage was the card he put back along with the swords, and it looks like a Lightning Bolt potentially.
And a Wasteland's a really important draw here for Shahar, as it allows him to Wasteland Brandon's Rashadin Port. That frees up his white mana on his own main phase, and that gives him a lot more flexibility to threaten Umazawa's Jite coming into play at various times, to actually cast the Meddling Mages that are in his hand and so forth.
If you're Dempsey right now, you've got a little bit of breathing space. He's got about 1 or 2 more draw steps until things get really, really bad for him.
Yeah, the Thalia and the Rashadin Port and the early attacks he's gotten in have held him together thus far, but it's going to start getting a lot worse for him.
Shahar will draw a mystery card. It is a copy of Polluted Delta. More lands are actually pretty good here for the Blue-Eye Red Delver player.
Yeah, oddly enough, he still needs more mana as he's trying to battle through this Thalia and these Rashad boards.
Now, those dazes in his hand are a little bit stinky for various reasons. Thalia, Aether Vial, Cavern Souls. They're not at their best right now, but for Dempsey, he's got to draw an action spell. He needs to draw one right now. He draws. They're going to Wasteland here. Going to take care of this port, will Shenhar. It did not look like an action spell to me, Patrick.
And that's a really heads-up play there by Shahar. Once he confirmed that Brandon wasn't taking up the Vial 2/5, he wastelanded inside of Brandon's upkeep. That way, if Brandon had Siege Gang Commander, he would no longer have the mana for it. I guess he would still have his War Chief in play, but it would still deny him some amount of mana to chain together goblins.
Another True Name Nemesis comes rolling off the top here for Shenhar. Again, he is just trying to stabilize. True Name Nemesis is pretty good at that. As now here's 3 more mana. Oh, well, if the first one's not good, how's the second one?
And you can feel the game really starting to shift over to Shahar's side, of course.
And he feels so confident about how things are going. He's going to put one into the red zone. Now, don't forget, he searched up a GT much earlier in this game, and he is refusing to put that into play and equip it because you mentioned he feels that there's a Tuk-Tuk Scrapper.
Yeah, the fact that Brandon has not ticked up his Vial to 5 is a little on the suspicious side.
See what Dempsey has anything to do this turn. He's tapping some mana here. He's going to cast an Aether Vial. Has to pay 1 more because Thalia's in play. That's a real sign of weakness there, my friend.
Yes.
That means nothing's going on. He's playing lands and he's playing vials. He's not drawing, the good cards in his deck at this point. But to be fair, Patrick, it only takes one healthy draw here from the Goblins player. A Matron, a Siege Gang, a Ringleader to get himself right back in this.
Yeah, assuming that he has an answer to the Jitte in hand, Shahar certainly has the ground locked up and a little bit of pressure, but he's by no means out of the woods. Goblins has a lot of very high impact draws from this spot.
Shenhar not going to sacrifice Polluted Delta. Will take a draw, though. And there's an Arid Mesa. So now he's got enough lands. Now he just needs business.
Yeah, and I really like the way that Shahar is navigating this game here. A lot of players' instinct would have been to simply sacrifice the fetch land or to either source a plowshare something or put the Jitte into play. Shahar can sense that the Jitte is not safe, and there's no reason for him to plow any random creature in play right now because none of them are particularly valuable, especially in the face of this True Name Nemesis. And he's concerned about preserving his life total as he might get randomly killed by an Alpha Strike.
Yeah, he just wants to kind of play it safe.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's been playing it safe kind of the entire game, not walking in any traps. Again, Dempsey might have a Tuk-Tuk Scrapper in his hand. He may not, but Shahar's decided, you know what, I can play this game in such a way that I don't have to rely on the Jitte. But at the same time, Dempsey has to respect the Jitte the entire time because one connection, it's basically over.
Yeah.
And now Shahar says, all right, I'm moving in. Jitte, he's actually going to hard cast instead of maybe putting it through Stone Fortress because he feels like he needs that on defense. And this is the Tuk-Tuk Scrapper. So, unsurprisingly, Tuk-Tuk Scrapper is going to take care of the Jitte. Shenhar's going to take 1. You do see that's right, Goblin Artificer Ally.
Yeah. And I really think that Brandon jumped the gun a little early there. He should have waited for Shahar to attack.
Absolutely.
As, if Shahar is anticipating connecting with the Jitte, he certainly sends in the True Name Nemesis with Jitte equipped. It's possible he sends in another True Name Nemesis, and then you can definitely win the game on the way back. That's become a lot more challenging now.
It's pretty challenging now, I think, for Shenhar to actually attack with any of the True Name Nemesis, and he's going to leave him back, so Dempsey has time. He has time. Is he going to tick up these vials? That one's going to go to 1. He's going to leave that one at 4 for Ringleader. It's a Bloodstained Mire off the top. So, again, a lot of high-impact spells that he can draw. We're talking about Ringleader. We're talking about Matron. Hey, even Pile Driver's not so bad right now.
Assuming that Shahar has nothing in his hand that he can cast right now, which would stand to reason in the face of this Thalia, even a 2-power Goblin would be lethal on this board.
That's
as it
true.
would have haste and he'd have just enough attackers.
But Shenhar makes it out of this turn alive. You see the days, the swords, the other days, a red card picked up. It's a Grim Lavamancer, the singleton from Shenhar. That'll come into play. Need to speed up a little bit now for Dempsey. Gotta find a real spell here.
Yeah, this is what I was speaking to earlier. Grim Lavamancer not at the top of the list of cards in Shahar's deck you would list as being really good against goblins, but here it is, and it's possible that it's going to play a really valuable role in this game as well.
An attack here from True Nemesis, going to come across for 3. Dempsey goes down to 13. Bricks again. Draws a Cavern Souls. Going to put Bloodstained Mire into play. Hold 1 card here. Pass the turn back. No really good attacks yet. Again, basically the same board position we've been in for a little while here, which is just really no healthy attacks thanks to True Name Nemesis.
Yeah. Shahar just barely holding on, but if he gets to untap with an active Grim Lavamancer, the game starts getting much easier for him.
I've got a feeling that's what you may see here, is you do see Brandon Dempsey there. Deciding if he can make any sort of attack. Is it time to shove them all sideways? Does that accomplish anything? It's a real question to be had here.
Well, you know, besides the True Name Nemesis, Shahar's creatures are a little bit on the small side, so if the Grim Lavamancer wants to get in front of anything, it's either get in front of Gem Palm Incinerator or Chump. Stoneforge Mystic can probably block Goblin Lackey, but it still generates some damage here.
Yeah, some pretty obvious blocks here by Shahar. He can obviously eat the Goblin Lackey. He can kind of weigh everything else here. It looks like he's going to end up taking 4, but he does have a Source of Plowshares in his hand, so he can fire that off if he'd like to. We'll see. Really considering things, if he's willing to let his Grim Lavamancer go. I mean, at the very worst, Grim Lavamancer can trade with something here. If he decides he wants to leave it around, then we're looking at something different entirely, but it can't just trade with a creature here, so that's not so bad.
Yeah, and Shahar still has to respect Brandon's ability to burn him out here, whether it's something like Siege Gang Commander, even a couple of copies of Tarfire are in play. So Shahar cannot simply afford to go down to 1 life. There are risks he's incurring with each additional point of damage he takes.
So the world champ is going to decide exactly how to block here. Going to take his time. You see the clock there. We're under 7 minutes, but plenty of it, given how this game has gone. Looks like he may let the Goblin Lackey through, and if he does let the Lackey through, basically what that's saying is, okay, I honestly feel like you have nothing.
Yeah, certainly with the War Chief in play, it's almost certain that if Brandon had a Goblin in his hand, it would have been cast before combat. So Shahar no longer respects the Lackey, which I believe is correct. He still may want to block it with the Stoneforge Mystic simply because he gets to kill it for free, but he's not respecting the possibility of there being a really powerful Goblin in Brandon's hand right now.
So is this how Shenhar's going to block? It looks like he is. And obviously, he has the Fire of Swords here, so it's not lethal. And so that's what he's going to do. He's going to Swords to take care of a Goblin. It'll be the Tug Scrapper that bites the dust. Gem Palm and Thalia are going to come through. Shenhar's going to go down to 1. A bunch of things are going to go off the table here for Dempsey. He's going to be left with 2 creatures. Shenhar loses nothing. He'll untap as confidently as you can at 1 life with a fetch land in play. He'll draw a Ponder.
And a lot of dangerous draws, of course, in Brandon's deck.
1, 2, 3. Bolt, Wasteland, and a Tundra. Don't sack that polluted Delta. But I'm sure he knows that.
Yep.
He's okay at Magic.
That would be a pretty anticlimactic way for this game to finish. And Shahar, after turns of beautifully navigating from behind in the game, sacrificed the polluted Delta at 1 life. Brandon Dempsey wins 2 games to 1.
And back to the booth. Mystery card coming. It's a Wasteland. Not the best, but not the worst.
Yeah. Now, in theory, Shahar actually has a 2-turn clock afforded to him.
Yes, he does.
With his 2 copies of True Name Nemesis and 2 Grim Lavamancer activations. I think ideally he would like to end the game in 2 turns because, of course, Brandon has a lot of dangerous draws in his deck. But he, you know, by leaving his shields down, by not having True Name Nemesis back to block, he incurs other risks. So he's got to figure out right now, do I want to try to make this a 2-turn game and risk some draws from Brandon? Or do I want to make this a 3-turn game but risk Brandon getting additional draw steps?
Shenhar's going to attack 4-3. He's going to put Dempsey down to 12. Now, if you're Dempsey in this situation, I think you have to take your vial up to 5 and 3 because drawing a Ringleader at this point isn't the best, but if you do draw a Ringleader, you can hardcast it. You hardcast the Ringleader. If you find a Matron, then you can Violent Matron, Violent Siege Gang it, and activate. Because if he draws a Siege Gang right now, he can't actually play it and activate to kill him. There's not enough mana. So, we'll see what his Vial management will be on this particular turn. That's going up to 3. He's going to leave that at 4. Let's see what the draw step is. It's a Goblin War Chief. He's going to play a Cabinet Soul. So he does have the necessary mana that if he draws a Siege Gang Commander, he can actually get the job done. However, something to keep in mind is those dazes that have been absolutely pathetic the entire game, the daze would actually mess up the draw Siege Gang and activated plan. So let's see what Shenhar wants to do on this turn as he makes it out of that one alive. Again, Dempsey with just a War Chief in his hand. Shahar playing a little conservative, but at the same time, it's going to be a 3. It's going to be a lethal attack next turn. So Dempsey's going to Violent War Chief.
Yeah, this is kill or bust. So there's no way that Brendan can stop these two True Day Nemesis. So
It's a wasteland. It's a brick, and that is going to do it. Shahar Shenhar is going to win this match over Goblins 2-1. Blue, white, red Delver gets the job done again, as it always does, over the Goblins.
a really close match, and if, you know, there's that small decision point there, if Brandon decides to wait for Shahar to attack with his True Name Nemesis, and then vialing in right there and putting in his Tuk-Tuk Scrapper, it's possible he has exactly lethal coming across the following turn.
Yeah, it seems minor, you know, because it was a few turns ago, but you might be right about that. He may have missed out because he was a little bit hasty there. Now, you know, you can always say, oh, well, he didn't draw a matron or a ringleader and blah, blah.